All right, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at another snippet of a much longer breakdown. This time it's from Imitation Game. And here we're looking at a very specific example of how cinematography can sometimes be incredibly complex, right? You got to think about lots of things. You got to take in different elements. You got to be thinking about the lighting. You got to be thinking about the camera moving. You got to be thinking about the talent. You got to be thinking about the performances, how you're going to react to those performances, if it's handheld. All of these things, it can be really, really difficult to keep track of them, or it can be really basic, and remembering one of the most basic things, which is to light from an area that you never see or that you never have to look at in a room, right? That seems pretty basic, but when you see someone do it at an extremely high level, they do it very well. You see all of the benefits that come from never looking in one specific direction and placing your lighting in that direction so that you have full control. You can do whatever you want. You can set the levels however you want, and then you can pepper into the background a little bit of shape, a little salt, a little pepper, a little darkness, a little lightness. All of these things come off in the snippet that we're going to look at today. And the goal in examining these situations is so that when you are faced with them in your own location scout, in your own tech scout process, you can say, aha, I remember. All we have to do is not look at the direction of the giant 6x6 light that is inside. Also blending lights inside and outside. How do you do it in an interior situation? This is a great example of that, and that's why we're looking at it. If you want to see this, breakdown and many, many more, you can head on over to Patreon. We do it each and every week, a different feature film or longer narrative project where we do an entire breakdown of this. That is what makes all of these things possible on YouTube, is all of the work that happens over on Patreon. So if you like this kind of video, be sure to head over there and join. Okay, let's get into this little look at the Imitation Game. Now we come around here, same thing, same exact setup. We've got window up here that we can't see. That's where all of the light is being poured through. All these little edges here, this is probably added, right? This is probably up in here again, pushing extra level this way, because this amount of level from this window is not going to carry all the way across the room. And as he stands up, you notice something is amiss. Again, beautiful looking frame, right? All of the things that we just talked about before are there. Now what we have to do is we got to fill in from this side to provide this edge, because we don't want this to be completely black. So we add a little bit of edge from this way, a little ambient, which you can see in the coat, and then a stronger one from frame right. And that gives us this little line here. Again, just pull and separate the characters from the background. This is almost like the next step. Once you get everything ticked off of the framework and all the positions and the locations, and you get the light in the right spot and all of those things, you can either start to pepper the frame with other stuff and angles on other stuff and play with the camera position. Or you can go, okay, well, are all the characters edged out? Do we spend any more time helping them be separated from the background? That's like the final step. And there it is, close up, second unit stuff. And here we are, light coming this way. I mean, look at even this shot. Like, this could be a really boring shot, right? It's just some guy scooping up some dust onto this piece of paper, right? That could be a boring shot. But this one, add in all of this with all of this crap up here, like, it just creates depth. That's all we're doing here. And we know we're in the right spot because we're in the right spot in the wide, that he could easily, you know, in our blocking when we're talking this through with the director, this is where you have to, because some directors don't know. Some directors don't care. So this is your job. In the wide, they could be like, well, wouldn't it be great if we want his back to us? So let's put him over here on this side of the table and like in between that little gap there, and we'll face his head that way. We don't want to face his head that way. And then you say to the director, that is not a good idea, right? Because we're going to have this interaction in a second where we need these shots. So we need his face looking that way because it's going to be then backlit, right? That is why he's in this position in this shot, because it works for this shot and it works for this shot, right? Here's something. Now he's almost floating in a blob of nothingness with the master prime level, but still has this little tiny, like, where is this coming from? It doesn't matter. It just looks great. And you can see how much we've softened up with the 4x diffusion pane here. But even then, like, it starts to get a little bit flat in the background, but that's the environment that we're in. And he still hasn't looked up. We go to the 2 shot and ta-da. Now, we never see over here in the room, right? Because they came down, plop, 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 or over here are the stairs, plop, plop, plop. They come down the stairs and we're only looking this way, which means we never see this corner, which means that's why all the light is over here. Because If we remember back to the scene, the light should be coming from over here because this is the window that he was just standing in front of, right? This is our little window here. That's where the light should be coming from. But we want to make sure in our location or in our set, we have enough room to light this way. Okay? And here, just again, a great job, a great position inside of the room. And then it works for here too. Like, where is this daylight coming from? This is the window over here that he was standing in front of, which provides our little edge from the light that is inside the room. So this, we can't control this in this situation. You probably easily could control this, right? Because you could just, with this little window, you could probably just ND that window or have a net right in front of the window, especially on the master primes when you're shooting so wide open. It's often way easier. It's harder to come by the nets. Not as many lighting and grip people have big 12 by 12 nets, but it's significantly faster than trying to ND windows and make it look good. If you know you're going to be this wide open, you don't have to be that perfect with NDing windows, but it's just easier to go the nets when you're working with 1 or 2 windows versus NDing all of them. So for here, we balance to this level. We add our backlight above here, which is going to be our Titan tubes, and then we add our key from over here. You know, in today's world, these would be Titan tubes, this would be sky panel. And we just wrap that level around and neg this side. And also the color in this is really, really well done. The costume marrying up with the production design and then the final color is really, really beautifully done. And just perfectly sitting in there. Look at, again, how soft that is. How we just touching that other cheek. We get our eye light in. We got our little backlight in. Like, this is a phenomenal looking film. Same, matching. And we're in our triangle setup, but we're only concerned about this angle, right? So him to Alan Turing. Everybody to Alan Turing. We don't care about these two between each other. Again, a nice looking, gorgeous image. You notice when we have more boring stuff in the background, it gets shallower. The frame actually gets shallower, right? That is not by accident. Here again, even in this situation, we've got the door here. Then we've got the darkness married up next to the lightness. And then on the dark side of his face, we have the light side of the wall. Like, this is really, really high level stuff. And then the color palette all the way across that blue, just with that steel blue on the face as well. Just nice looking stuff. All the exact same distance away from each other, all very easy to light. This whole scene, super, super easy to light once you nail the wide location, right? So as soon as you get, well, this is the hardest one, right? And this is the one why it doesn't look very nice. Where is this light coming from? It's got to come from over here now to get them over here, which is why it doesn't look near as soft or near as nice in this particular angle. Whereas when we get in here, it's much more sculpted. Like, this feels like the whole movie almost feels the same density as like a Fight Club or something like that. The darkness is there, the richness in the colors, the static camera. It feels like that Fight Club world. And he turns away, and we're out. And then we're outside in the dull gray of wherever we are. So that is blocking to your strengths and not putting yourself in, not boxing yourself into a corner where you know one angle is going to look bad, so you have to light the whole thing to compensate for that angle. You just don't want to do that. You want to go through the entire process. The hard bit about blocking and experience for camera framing and things like that is it takes a lot of experience. You have to already have all the lighting stuff down to then be able to focus on, well, what do I need to make the lighting stuff possible? So it's like the next journey beyond. All right, so hopefully you see where really it's not that hard, right? It's not difficult. Just put the light where you're never going to see. Okay, but in order to do that, you have to know and design your scene around where you're never going to see. You have to make sure that there's a spot in the location that you never see, because that's where you're going to put your stuff. And although it might seem obvious, it's just a great reminder that as you're building these scenes out in your head, as you're in those conversations with the directors and the production team early on, it's like you have to sort of carve out this idea that the action is going to play along certain lines, and those certain lines are going to intersect, and we're going to be able to see, we're going to carve out a little area which we're never going to see. And that's what's going to motivate all of the lighting for us. That's where we're going to be able to pull lighting from. And then once we know that, well, then we can start to make decisions on equipment, on gear, on personnel, right? We have to figure out what we have to work with. And the way that you can do that ahead of time is go, okay, where do we never see inside of this room based on the action that's going to take place in conversation with the director before we even get to the set, right? This is too late. You don't want to see the blocking on the day and go, you know what would be good is if maybe we just change one or two things. I'm just thinking of this for the first time now. It's like, that's the whole job, is to do this well in advance. Is to say, what are the problems going to be? If we have characters just walking around a circle in a room, is that going to be problematic for lighting? Probably, right? You don't want to see 360 degrees in a spot. You watch any cinematography that you like, that you're like, well, that image looks great. Like you could just pull that single image and it could be a still image all on its own. You know what you don't see there? You know what doesn't happen in those situations? Giant amounts of movement where you have zero control, right? You want maximum amount of control. And then you want it to look like, it just magically happened. I didn't have any control. It's just like the person was just perfectly placed. So it's about lighting the space and then putting the person inside of the space exactly where you want them and then making them think that it's their idea. That's the way that everyone will love you. If you just can light a space beautifully and then convince someone else that it was their idea to stand in just the right spot, guess who they're going to like? You. Guess what that means for you? More of that sweet, sweet cash. And then come back here and tell me about it. And that's all I ask. Okay, that's going to do it for this one. Many thanks. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.